What's going on, YouTube Metal Complex here, and today I want to talk about zero tolerance knives and where they're at right now, and my disappointments and where I'd like them to be. First off, I want to let you guys know a lot of this episode is going to be my own personal bias, my own personal feeling of being let down by ZT with their current lineup and what I want from them. So some of you may be on the same page as me, and some of you might think no, not at all. And a lot of this is wishing, because I'm going to be like, I'm going to say things like, why don't they do this or why don't they do that? But, a lot of times changing things or creating new models or collaborating with, makers they've never collaborated with before, or collaborating with people that they have worked with before. It's not like just snapping a finger. There's a lot that goes into it. So I don't want anybody to think that I'm actually suggesting that zero tolerance just make this sudden change and everything's rainbows and everything just works out. It doesn't work like that. There's a lot to go into it. You guys might also be thinking, you're going to talk about zero tolerance knives, you don't have any ZT knives on the table. What I have here are some frame locks that I currently have in my possession. 3 of them mine, 1 of them not, the Best Tech Horse. That one's got to go back or go on to the next reviewer. But what we've got here is the Hinderer XM18 3.5 inch. We've got the PMP Revenge. We've got the Steelcraft Series Bodega, which is almost too big to fit on the frame, and the Best Tech Horse. Now these are all close to the same size titanium frame locks, and they all there's a lot of qualities that I like about each one of these knives. They're fairly large knives. They're full titanium. They're all made with good steels. They've got a really good action. 3 of them really good flipping action. And the reason that I've come to enjoy stuff like this is honestly the foundation was created by zero tolerance. Now zero tolerance has made some and unnecessarily overbuilt stuff, and they used to kind of be like, zero tolerance, and it really aggressive, and and then they kind of backed off a little bit, and they had some really good designs, namely the ZT0562, which is arguably it is one of my favorites. That and the 0393 and the 0392, which are all Hinderer designs, and there's a bias right there, because I like Hinderer stuff. But I feel like that time period was really like where ZT was, everybody's like, yeah, ZT has so many awesome models, and they, doing all this awesome stuff, and everybody likes them, and they had the best flipping action then. They kind of, in my opinion, kind of set the stage for the rest of the knife world, and I honestly, this day, I feel like a lot of companies were like, we should just do our detents and flipping action like ZT's doing it, because they got it figured out. And then they kind of started to back off a little bit. They made some smaller models. They had some good designs. They had some good smaller model designs, and people, okay, they're, and then they backed off a little bit more. They discontinued some other stuff that we like. They were still making some larger kind of overbuilt folders, but not in the way that people wanted, and in weird colors, and some of the sprint runs were like WTF, It was just weird. And I'm not saying you're wrong if you liked some of that stuff. I'm being generic on purpose. I'm saying, people were like, what the heck is going on with ZT? And then this year, we're going to move some stuff off the table because of the fact that I don't currently own any ZTs. I have to use the iPad. And by the way, I'm struggling to decide between the ZT0562 Ti, which I have already owned, and the ZT0393 BRZ, which I have handled every other version of except the BRZ. Those are the 2 I'd really like to purchase for myself while I have the chance. But for right now, we're going to have to use the iPad, which means we're going to have to use the poor rat one to prop it up. So this year, zero tolerance does this. I don't think I have ever been more disappointed for a model announcement. Now, some of you might like this. I don't. I don't like this. I really don't like the price on it. It's a 2-finger position knife. This knife goes against everything that I talk about that I like. I mean, if you guys are a part of this channel, you'll know that I just don't like this. ZT's never really had a model that I hated, or I felt like stung me, and I'm not a very negative person. I'm just like, it's that's for me or it's not for me, And ZT has models right now that I think are really, really good. You know, the 0920 that's based on the Les George Harpy. That's super cool. And that tiger stripe thing they're doing, it's neat. You know, I like that. But this knife, I don't like this. The 0022. This to me, and this might sound really dramatic, this felt like a personal kick in the face. And I was just like, what? What is this? I don't like this. I'm so sorry, guys. It's gonna sound so preachy. To give you an example, anybody who's not, familiar with this model, there's the size. Now, this is beneficial to some people. Some people only like knives like this, and this is fine. But me, kind of like my own personal interest in the knife world, kind of began to grow around my interest in ZT. They were one of the first companies to really snag my attention with those, some of the more aggressive, big-looking folders. And not because I'm specifically attracted to stuff like that, but that kind of got me going. And at the same time, it got me going with the premium stuff, so it helped me develop my tastes. I like to think my tastes are pretty good. Not everybody's going to agree with me, but, looking back on what I loved about ZT, it's not this. I don't like this. They have a lot of models like right now that I don't like, but this one really did it in for me. So the next few slides are going to be my hopes and dreams, mostly dreams, because I know that it's unlikely that any or, well, all or any of this would happen. But I'm going to go over some things that I think would be really interesting if ZT decided to do. Now, you guys know, everybody knows about the ZT 0562. This is a Hinderer collaboration. This is, in my opinion, one of the best offerings right now, and it's one of the best offerings that ZT has ever had. Excellent flipping action, excellent ergonomic design, excellent blade shape. Everything's great about this knife. Some people are like, I don't like bearings for hard use, and this is a hard use knife. All right, it'll still work just fine. In fact, I've got a buddy who uses his every single day, and it's completely gunked up, and he never cleans it. I talk about it on my 0562 episode. It's fine. This is a great knife. Not many people are going to deny that, right? Now, we all remember, and that was just to give an example of something that ZT's doing right now that I like. This is the foundation of everything that I'm going to say is based on my love for the 0562. We all remember this. This is the Les George. Is it the 0808? I believe. I can probably look at the model number. No, 0909. This is the 0909. This is based on the Les George Talos. This was, in my opinion, just an overpriced folder. It had the ZT elements, the big heavy-duty blade, the 8.5 inches, big thick liners, blah, blah, blah. It was S35 on steel and G10, and they were trying to charge $180 for it, and it just didn't work. This was not a ZT knife that went over well with the community. This is a Les George collaboration that is going over well with the community. This is a sprint run, 0920. I love this. This says ZT to me, but it also shows off their ability to do contouring on the scales and nice machine work. That's definitely something that I like. It's a 20 CV blade, very attractive harpoon style blade with a, a thumb ramp, thumb notch. I mean, this is a very usable blade and people like this. This is good. Here's an example of a Les George collaboration that's currently happening. That's a good knife, right? Why not bring the VECP into the mix? This, to me, is a fantastic example, of a knife that could translate well in Zero Tolerance's lineup. Now, you guys are like, you just really like the VECP. That's what you want. Zero Tolerance has been experimenting with that Emerson knife. It's kind of the similar silhouette. What is it? The one with the green carbon fiber that I said I really liked. And I liked it. The thumb disc thing didn't really work for me. Imagine here with me that, they take the same idea. This knife is on phosphor bronze as well, right? Imagine it all blacked out. For whatever reason, it's easier for people to visualize a Zero Tolerance collaboration if it's all blacked out, right? We've got a thumb stud opener. We've got a phosphor bronze washer system. We've got, full titanium or maybe titanium frame lock on one side. You do carbon fiber and a liner on the other side, whatever. You've got a really good knife that would translate well to Zero Tolerance and actually be capable of hard use and be, a model that is from a maker they're currently working with. Now, it's easier said than done. I want to emphasize that. I don't live in a fantasy world. I don't think that ZT can be like, hey, Les George, can you toss us over a cup? We'll just give us the dimensions. We'll just stamp a couple of these out. It doesn't work like that. It's just a wish. I think that would be nice. Also, Strider has collaborated with Zero Tolerance in the past. The picture that you're looking at here is a full custom MSC SNG. This is when it was available, it was probably a freaking $1,500 knife at least. This is one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen. Now, obviously, this can't translate perfectly into a zero tolerance knife, but I would like to see an SNG ZT. Right now Strider's doing stuff with ProTech, and he's, I think they closed the doors to their production line, and he just went back to his own thing and making knives, custom. But he's still open to collaborations, obviously. So I don't know if you guys are with me or not. Would you like to see an SNG zero tolerance? I think that would be awesome. I think that would be super cool. Again, easier said than done, but man, that would make such a good knife, and it would bring back some of the elements, and like I said, they did work with Strider in the past. What is it, the 0300, the 0303? Was there a fixed blade in there? I can't remember, but they've worked with him before. Moving on here, let's talk about Medford. Medford doesn't really they don't really do collaborations. This is me dreaming right here. Medford doesn't really do collaborations, not that I'm aware of. So this is not something this is probably something that would never happen. But I went through Medford's line to refresh myself, looked at all their knives, and they're not notorious for doing bearings. Zero Tolerance loves bearings. I could see a lot of clashing and a lot of not making sense. If they were going to do a folder, the Proxima kind of reminds me of something that I might have seen in the ZT lineup once upon a time. But truthfully, that's not why I'm bringing up Medford. Zero Tolerance, to me, has not had a good fixed blade for a long time, and considering they're incredibly tactical, the whole Zero Tolerance thing, it makes me think of, hard use and tactical mixed together. What a fantastic opportunity for them to do another fixed blade. And then, we take the folder out of the equation. You don't have to worry about bearings or a pivot or anything like that. Medford used to make, or I don't know if they still do, the USMC Raider. Oh my gosh, would I like to see a scaled down zero tolerance translation of this knife. Again, this is a ridiculous pipe dream. I know that. I know people are rolling their eyes. I know people that are already down in the comment section typing up why I shouldn't even be allowed to give my opinions on this stuff because it's so stupid. I don't care. This would be so cool. Zero Tolerance did actually do I think it was a Hinderer collaboration fixed blade field knife or a field tack. I can't remember what they called it. If you go back and look at ZT fixed blades, there's one that's just perfect, and it's gone, and it's been gone for a long time. I'd like to see that come back too, but man, if ZT in a crazy alternate universe where they actually collaborated with Medford, I would love to see them do a fixed blade. Can you imagine that? Headlines: Zero Tolerance and Medford collaboration fixed blade. I feel like that would grab some attention, but again, maybe I'm alone. Let's move on here. Let's move on to Hinderer knives. So this is the only knife in a long time, with ZT there were a lot of knives that attracted me with Zero Tolerance, a lot of models that attracted me. But the main ones were the Hinderer collaborations. And there was the 0560. It was pretty good. I think it had some lock face issues, and it was a really big knife, and then they fixed some of that stuff, and then they just were like, it's just, we got some other stuff coming out. And then they did the 0392 factory custom series. Those were awesome. I love that. A lot of people really like those. Problem with them is that they were expensive. Then, of course, around that same time, they were also doing the ZT 0562, which was the Hinderer collaboration that was meant to best resemble the XM18. There was the 0550, and it was close, but it wasn't, it didn't translate as well as the 0562. So the 0562 became ultra famous, and they still do that knife. To me, the next closest thing in their production line is the 0393, which is it's just a very thin frame lock, but it's technically, a lot of people call it a liner lock, and it's got G10 overlays. The G10 overlays are meant to mimic what Hinderer did with the Maximus. The initial production version was blue with a two-tone blade, and it was weird. It looked like their production variant of this looked like it should have been a sprint variant. This should have been the standard version. And they should have shadow boxed the scales, meaning they should have filled in these spots with a titanium and left just a little ridge around the outside. And hey, you'd have had a way better looking knife, at base, and then you could have come out with a billion different little tiny color schemes, with special runs or whatever you wanted to do, but they just did everything backwards with this knife. I love the knife, but I was so frustrated with how they executed it. It was just weird, Let me tell you, and there's the 0392, for example, an example of something they could have done with it, something interesting. My favorite version of it, which I still have yet to be able to acquire. Let me show you what I think the knife should have looked like. These are aftermarket fully covered scales, or scales that fully cover everything except for the liners, right? Shadow box scales that are available on eBay right now for about $100. This looks awesome. It actually looks pretty good with the two-tone blade. That pivot in there is a Hinderer pivot. I thought this was a great picture because it gives me an opportunity to remind people you can use the aftermarket Hinderer hardware that's now in plentiful supply, including pocket clips and filler tabs. This looks so much better. This is what that knife should be. And it seems like they're discontinuing the 0393 because the only version that's left in production, I'm getting notifications. The only version that's left in production right now is the GLCF, the glow-in-the-dark version, which it's cool, but I don't know that we really need glow-in-the-dark carbon fiber. It's neat, don't get me wrong, it's neat, but I don't know that we need it. I'd love to see something like this, and I feel like, like I said, I feel like ZT's kind of given up on the 0393, but man, I feel like this knife would have gone over so much better. Or just a plain stonewash blade and a black G10 scale just like this. Or an all black version where you got the liners that are black, the blades black, people would like that. I feel like, I can say, if you can imagine with me an all black version of this, people would like, that's kind of ZT's audience. Also, you could toss a different blade shape on there. They did these really aggressive Wharncliffes on the 0392. You could, mess around with not just the Harpoon Spanto, but the Wharncliffe or some other, thing. People loved this black and purple version of the factory custom 0392. They loved that. It was very striking. The Wharncliffe was more aggressive than the standard Wharncliffe that Rick Hinderer did, and it was just cool, I'd like to see a, hyper tactical looking Wharncliffe, just for the love of enjoying stuff like that. Not because I think the knife world necessarily needs it. Do we really need any of this? No, it would just be interesting. Moving on here. Here's an example of another knife that I feel like is kind of a shock that Rick Hinderer never kicked to ZT because he kicked it to Kershaw. There's a Kershaw version of the Maximus and not a zero tolerance version. This knife is a little over 8 inches overall. It's about 8.1 inches. The Maximus has not hit what we call the Generation 6 or the Tri-Way system yet. So the one that's being offered by Rick Hinderer is still on the nylon washers. Here's an example of an all blacked out version of it. Blacked out hardware, blacked out blade, blacked out, liners, all that stuff. Imagine with me that it's all DLC and carbon fiber and it says ZT on it and it's on bearings. That would be so cool. And, for people, again, wanting to tell me that's unrealistic, you can't, they did it with Kershaw, which is part of Kai USA. They just made a tiny Kershaw version of it that's like $30 and not made very well. I'd really like to see a zero tolerance version of this. That would be really, really cool. Again, probably easier said than done. Rick Hinderer's got a lot going on. It's not like he can do everything that he's doing right now, which is creating like a billion different designs and trying to get his Tri-Way system to work with everything and trying to do a million different versions of everything. He can't do that and hop on over and, to the ZT board and be like, hey, let's do this. This is just me wishing, again. Really, really would be cool to see something like that, though. The main thing that I want to point out, and I have pointed this out before on Instagram, and I think I said something about it in a live feed, or maybe I was in Slicey Dicey's live feed and said something about it. But the knife that you're seeing right here is a Hinderer half track. A lot of you know right now Rick Hinderer has a half track and a full track. The half track I think is doing okay. It seems like the full track is not doing quite so well, despite having an interesting thing on it. It's got the tool on the back. But it seems like Rick Hinderer might be stepping back a little bit from the full track. Now, I've handled both. I've not owned my own personal full track, but I have owned the half track. I like the half track. I think it's a cool design. It's a cool look. It's a little bit small for my hands, but it's a great knife. Great knife, right? The full track is substantially bigger. By the way, the half track for somebody who's never handled it is like 6.5, 6.75 inches overall. So it's a small knife, right? The full track is a really big knife. It's like 8.75 inches. So it's actually in between the Hinderer XM18 and the Hinderer 24. XM18 at about 8.25 inches. Now, the cool thing about the full track is it's got all the other features of the half track, in terms of the aesthetics. It's just bigger. It's got the bigger hardware. It's utilizing 20 CV. It's got the tri-way. Both systems have the tri-way, which is the ability to have bearings or phosphor bronze or nylon. Now, the cool thing about this is it has the tool for disassembly built into it. And it's also got a pocket clip that is modular. I would just die if Zero Tolerance and Rick Hinderer decided to work together to make what I guess what I would call it would be a medium track or a mid track, something that's in between. And that doesn't really make sense because I think half track and full track, those words are based on military vehicles, and there probably isn't a medium or mid track. But basically, this knife just kind of brought down to an 8 or 8.25 inch knife, about a ZT-0562 size knife. And then if you could imagine with me, they darken it up, or they zero tolerance it, They make an all black one. They make one with carbon fiber. They do a stone washed blade, or whatever, and it says ZT on it instead of Hinderer. This is the best example that I could find, by the way. The one laying down here has got a black G10 scale, and then you've got this sort of baked bean color or OD green color that's on the handle, that one. But just imagine with me, we've got a medium-sized full track that's got that tool built into it. And maybe they run it on bearings. Maybe they build one with phosphor bronze. Maybe it's a flipper tab. Maybe they kind of spice it up, decide to do a thumb stud on it for whatever reason. I don't know. It just kind of shocks me that this was never, and maybe I'm alone here, but it just can never it shocks me that this was not something that, was ever kicked to ZT. And maybe I'll eat my words, and like in 10 days, they'll announce that they're doing this knife. I feel like that's a dream. I feel like I might be more alone on this one than any of the other ones, but this knife looks so ZT to me. And I feel like it would go over well with the community. I think Zero Tolerance needs to take the Spyderco approach, and when they create the standard version of a knife, make one that looks good and isn't like incredibly wild right out of the gate. The 0393 is the standard production version. The 0393 is the best example of that. The two-tone blade and the blue ano, and they're like, here it is. This is the one that will always be available. And people are like, what? Why didn't you just do black and stonewashed and a stonewashed blade and then make some weird versions of it, So, like Spyderco's approach, they have the standard version of every model, it seems like, in black G10 and then either satin or stonewashed. And then they do a bajillion dealer exclusives and sprint run variants, and that works. Now, it works, in part because the audience or the consumer base for Spyderco is different than for ZT, right? But I feel like that's a more reasonable approach to this kind of stuff, That's kind of what I'd like to see. Now, I can give one example of how it worked really, really well for ZT. When they did all of the multiple color variants of the 0392 factory customs, people went berserk for those, right? So that is something people want. People like to see, like, here's the presentation model, here's the standard production version, and then down the road they're like special variant, special variant, special variant. And some people get annoyed by that. But I kind of like it. I like being like, oh, you're doing just a few of these. You're doing 500 of these in this color, and it's going to be special. And then once you're done with them, you're done with them. You never make them again. Cool. I want one. I like that stuff. That's fun. That's fun for collectors and enthusiasts and users alike. Some people who are like hardcore users will buy something like that just to feel like, hey, I got a really, really special user. And they don't care that they beat it up. They just go ahead and use it. So, it's like I said. Do I have any more pictures? No, that's the last picture. it's like I said, this was a very rambly episode. It's a very like pipe dreamy episode. It's just me. It's just a somebody who loves zero tolerance. I love zero tolerance. I'm just frustrated to see where they're at right now, and I want to see some different stuff. And this video may get all thumbs down and like 100 views, and maybe nobody will care. And that's fine. If I'm alone on this, then I'm alone on this. And this video kind of came out of nowhere. I was literally shopping for variants of the 0393 and looking at 0562s again after having owned the 0562 4 other times and still letting it go. And I got to look into the other models and I was like, what is happening here? So I felt like I had to make this video. ZT, on the off chance that you ever watch this, or any of your employees or reps ever watch this, I love you guys. I love what you've done in the past. I just don't like what you're doing right now. Sorry for the preachiness. Sorry to anybody who does like the current ZT lineup. I'm not coming down on you or saying that I don't like you. I'm just saying we think differently. So anyways, that is pretty much it for today's episode. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Maybe slightly, or I hope you at least found it entertaining. If you did, please leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do of course have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, then please subscribe to my channel because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, and have a great day.